Right now, joining us is Democratic Senator Chris Coons, Senator from Delaware. Senator, thank you for coming in. I want to ask about what Donald Trump posted this morning, because he is digging in and maybe somewhat backing away from some parts of his plan, now saying that Gaza will be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of fighting. He says by then, Palestinians will already be resettled in the region, and also says that no troops will be needed in this. Tuesday night, you were speechless when you first learned of how he described his plan originally. Yes. And today, Senator, you are what when it comes to this Gaza proposal?
This is a dangerous distraction, Kate. Donald Trump is doing now what he's done often in his time in leadership, which is to distract us from something else that he's doing. And here it's pretty obvious. He is actively shutting down U.S. foreign aid. So the folks all around the world who've worked for the United States for decades, helping people who are homeless, who are hungry, who lack clean water and medicine, are all being forced to return to Washington. And the programs of our Foreign Aid Bureau, the USAID department, are being shut down. And so rather than confront the anger and the disappointment by many who believe that this is important for our safety and our security and for our values to be spread around the world, he's distracting with a completely unserious proposal to forcibly relocate nearly 2 million people. He's backing away today and saying U.S. troops wouldn't do it. The Israelis would somehow magically move 2 million people when there's no other country in the region that would welcome them, and the Gazans don't want to move. But Kate, let's just think about this for 1 second. If he were serious, exactly the people in the U.S. government who understand best how to deal with a humanitarian crisis, with refugees, with a lack of public health and clean water, with a lack of shelter, those are the people who are being fired, laid off, and put on administrative leave, and those are the programs being shut down. Democrats held the floor of the Senate all night last night to protest the nomination of a guy named Russell Vogt for an entity called OMB, which most folks have never heard of. But he's the guy who believes it's legal for the President of the United States to take money we've already appropriated and we're already spending, like money on foreign aid, and take it back. This is what he's distracting us from. And the idea that we would actually seriously take over Gaza, I don't think is a credible or realistic proposal at all.
One thing I want to ask about USAID and that Elon Musk-led effort, but on what Trump's talking about here and on the Gaza proposal, Stephen Witkoff said that Trump doesn't want to put troops on the ground and he doesn't want to spend any U.S. dollars at all. When you were talking, it made me think of it when you were talking about USAID being the people that would need to be helping in that effort. You're laughing because that's just not even possible if Donald Trump is serious and would want to do this?
Where would the tens of billions of dollars and the expertise come from if every Arab and Muslim country in the region forcefully opposes the idea of relocating Palestinians and would not support this, and they've publicly said so?
Right.
Where would all this money to rebuild Gaza come from, and who would do it? It is not a serious proposal. It's a distraction. So we're not paying attention to the fact that they've burrowed in, these Doge folks under Elon Musk's direction.
So
they've burrowed
into
the private information of every American, something that we should all be alarmed about and should be blocked in federal courts.
On especially USAID, because you've been very outspoken in your criticism of what they're trying to do with USAID and are doing. Is it the hatchet approach that you think is so wrong, or do you think no review and no reform at all is warranted at an agency like USAID?
I absolutely expected and agree that we should be looking closely at every federal agency, from the Department of Defense to USAID, for where they can be more efficient, more effective. I've introduced 2 bipartisan pieces of legislation to make USAID more effective in the last Congress when Biden was president. Absolutely. I fully thought that this year we would begin a fairly searching review of AID and its partners to make sure that it's effective. But this is a chainsaw approach, laying off all the people who understand best how to fix it, how to improve it. Folks who've worked there for years, folks who've run it. It has long enjoyed deep bipartisan support. It was President Bush who launched a program called PEPFAR that has saved 20 million lives.
Yeah.
And the folks who are actually implementing AID programs like World Vision, Catholic Relief Services, CARE, Save the Children, are nonprofits that are supported by millions of Americans. Americans didn't wake up and suddenly decide, we don't want to push back on China's influence. We don't want to be safe from pandemics. We don't want to help people in the world who are struggling with disasters. But the chainsaw approach that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are taking to foreign aid will have that consequence. China is cheering. Folks who are human traffickers, who are drug cartels, who are terrorists, they will advance as we abruptly shut down and abandon these important and life-saving programs that help keep Americans safe.
One thing we do know is someone always fills the void. Someone always fills the vacuum when it is left.
Absolutely.
That is for sure. Senator, thank you for coming in. Really appreciate your time. Sarah?
Thanks.
All right.